Hello, Sacred Walker here. So excited to have you join the Self-Love for Everyday Superheroes Academy show. I'm so excited to have a very special guest on today, Kami, who's going to be speaking with us in conversation together about such an important topic that I've heard again and again in my one-on-one, in our masterminds, about supervising people, right? The toughest job. And many of us executives, entrepreneurs, and everyday superheroes are oftentimes supervising, whether we're managing groups or we're managing or supervising individuals. What does it mean? Some of the best tips of being able to manage or supervise people or groups without imposter syndrome or feeling like you're not enough or up to the task getting in the way. And speaking with her personally about her biggest lessons in growing her business. Since we've been around for over a decade here at Kumba Health International Coaching Institute and have now launched the Self-Love for Everyday Superheroes Academy, I am so excited to speak to fellow entrepreneurs and powerhouses in the world who are making a big impact and a big splash to hear how we can together really tackle some best tips in this economy and in this current state of the world. So this podcast is meant to support you towards your journey of healing. We're here to unlock unstoppable love in you, whether you are deepening self-love, to help you reclaim authentic freedom, to help you achieve that mental clarity and better health, and to help you manifest your vision of excellence. So the naysayers in the world or the inner critic in your own mind does not block your shine. This show is for educational purposes. So because we are talking today about best tips for growing your business, growing your career, and tips for being able to manage people or groups without imposter syndrome getting in the way, I want to make sure that you have some delicious gems and tips so that you can walk away from our conversation today. So whether it's just 2 of you that are joining us or 2 million today, I'm so excited for hearing your comments, hearing your thoughts, and you're joining our well-being watch party to watch this live and comment on this show directly. So hop on over to Self-Love for superheroes.com, selfloveforsuperheroes.com, and you can hop on in and join the conversation and be able to speak live with the presenters about this very subject. Share your thoughts. Kami brings all kinds of big credentials to this conversation. Kami has been a business coach for well over 10 years, a connector, a storyteller, and a change maker, specifically focusing in on women of influence, right? And so she brings out the voice in others so that they can make an impact, so that they can make growth in their professional career in ways that have yielded all kinds of impact, right? And she uses her magical powers of manifestation and live out loud, fueled with vitality and courage to make an impact. And she also loves horses. So for those of us who are tuning in, I am so excited that she is a fellow animal lover. So today we're going to be talking about some big stuff, some big gems. And the main through line is that when we understand our past and we build generational well-being in our present, we can level up in our future. And so as we join here, we want you to take good care of yourself. Make sure that you're honoring your mind, body, and spirit when you show up as that leader, when you show up as that manager, when you show up as that executive, so that you can continue to shine while you're helping others do the same. And as many of us know, in today's economy, where there are things like quiet quitting, where people slowly ease their way out, or sometimes it can be hard to find good people, or you find good people, but you want to make sure that they're invested in your vision, or maybe you're invested in someone else's vision and you want to hear some tips about maybe ways that they can better supervise you, or how they can grow professionally. Or maybe you have a side hustle that you're like, do I want to grow this because I also will have to take on managing others, right? Wherever it is that you're coming into this conversation, you are on purpose for a purpose and you are in the right place. So I am committed to empowering 1 million everyday superheroes, whether you are in the law field or whether you are a lover of life, whether you are retired or you are a regular everyday teacher, whether you are working on the front lines or working in the C-suite right alongside the commissioners, whether you are in city government or corporate, right? We are here to help you to transform barriers to well-being, to achieve next level success and peak performance. And so because self-love is super important to these conversations, we want to make sure that you understand what love stands for when we talk about how are we loving ourselves as supervisors? How are we loving ourselves as those who are being supervised by others so that imposter syndrome does not get in the way? L stands for living in our principles. O stands for standing in and seeing those opportunities for growth and taking a leap of faith on our gifts. V is to turn those vices to victory so that our vices don't stand in our way and they can make us truly victorious. And E is emerging in unmatched potential. The part that I bring to this conversation is that I have a specific background in health and well-being, being a mind-body health expert, doing advanced training in integrative health and medicine, as well as being trained as a therapist and a interfaith minister, and having sprinkles throughout the years of being a powerful, beautiful creative. So that whole mix, standing in on all the powerful work that I've done in executive coaching is what I bring to the table. And we've now here at Kumba Health supervised hundreds of people coming in from interns to mentees to coming through contractors, etc., that we've been fortunate to be able to touch the lives of many. And as well, they've been able to touch my life. And so we're going to be having a conversation with Kami today to see her expertise in business and to be able to really have a breakthrough so that we're not feeling that imposter syndrome or that burnout when we are showing up as our powerful selves. Now, learning these tools around how to better manage people and how to manage my own emotions when managing people, how to manage my time when managing people, and as well, how to take care and nurture groups has helped my relationships, not just romantic, my friendships, my team members, my coworkers, right? It helped me so much that I'm so happy to share this gem of a topic with you. So if you haven't done so already, do subscribe below, number one. Number two, hop over to selfloveforsuperheroes.com. Selfloveforsuperheroes.com. Number two, to join the watch party and make sure that you request the Facebook group to join. And number three, make sure that you hop on over to lovemedicineuniversity.com. Lovemedicineuniversity.com, where you can join our Executives at Ease conference that we have coming up. This retreat is going to be focusing in on creating a self-care immersion just for you. So on the other side of all that supervising and all that peopling, we can love upon you and bring ease into your life. So to register for that info session, hop over to lovemedicineuniversity.com. All right, so those are your three action steps. So let's dive on in, because you came here specifically on purpose for a purpose, and we want to make sure that we get a chance to love upon you and bring in our very special guest. As a heart-centered person, as a person who was connected to me by Nikita Thigpen of Thig Pro, Balance Boldly podcast, etc., amazing woman and sister friend in her own right. She introduced us. As someone who I admire her work, she runs something called the Extraordinary Women Radio and the Extraordinary Women Conference. As someone who's making an impact in the world, as someone who supervises teams, makes an impact, and really is about standing in an influence, I've been very much blown away by the gifts she brings. And I have some amazing women in my life and amazing people in my life that I feel fortunate to know, and she definitely is one of them. So I'm so excited that she'll be joining us here in a moment. So stay tuned. All right, so Kami is here, the one, the only Kami Guildner. Thank you so much for being on our show today. It's such an honor to have you.
Oh, thank you, Sacred Walker. I am so thrilled to be here. I am so thrilled that we've been introduced to each other and gotten to know each other a little bit more.
Absolutely, and it's great to have you on our show today so that you really give some insight back to our everyday superhero so that we can really give some self-love, self-care, and success strategies. And today we're going to be really focusing in on some success strategies with your experience as a business coach of over 10 years.
Yeah, I'm excited to share what I can share.
Absolutely. So maybe start within the spirit of self-love. Tell us a little bit about how you fell in love with helping people, helping women to step into their power to really grow their business. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
It's interesting. I came out of the corporate world probably close to 15 years ago, and when I left the corporate world, I did a lot of that inner work of what did I love about my work that I used to do. I was a VP of marketing, and so yes, I loved all the functional side of my work, but what I really loved was the people side of it. I loved the people, my teams. I loved the people I got to work with, the people I got to collaborate with. I was part of a global organization, so I really got to be in different cultures around the world. So there was a thread that's come through all of my work, through all of my career, that is about people, right? It's about uplifting people. And when I left the corporate world, I initially was working with executive women who were hearing this calling for something more, and because it was kind of my journey, right? So there was this space of me stepping out of that into my own journey of becoming a coach, becoming a guide, becoming a leader in the space of leading people. And then it kept refining into I love to work with women, and so that clarity came there. And then so many of my clients started leaving the corporate world and starting their own businesses, and thus the pathway into the world of leading women entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. So it's really been, I think the thread has been the people thread and serving and really connecting at a deeper level. And that's been what's really lit me up.
And even as you talk about it, I can see the light emanating from you
Yes.
about that journey, about the impact
Yeah.
kind of helping people in that transition. So as we talk a little bit about that space of checking in with that light of what has lit you up, of what ways that you've made an impact, tell us a little bit about something that if you were to describe an experience that you had, that you would say, this is one of my big lessons.
Yeah.
Once I stepped into that. Many people are tuning in. If you're listening now and you're saying, oh my gosh, this is right where I want to be. Maybe you're someone who is listening in and you are brand new to starting something new. Or maybe you are a new supervisor. Or maybe you're staying in your current job, but you are interested in starting something on the side. Wherever you are in your journey, you're many years in business. If you were to say, as a supervisor, as a manager, what is something that you would share with us would be an important thing?
What I would say is to really learn to be able to tap into that heart of your wisdom. Mm-hmm. Learn to listen to that inner wisdom inside. Mm-hmm. Because so often what happens is we have so much external noise coming to us, whether you are in a company, whether you are an entrepreneur, there's a lot of outside information coming to you. And the biggest lesson I have learned has been to listen and to trust the wisdom that's inside of me. And that was a big journey. That was and I think that it continues even today. I mean, it's like we're never done with learning to listen to our inner wisdom. And we just take it to new levels. And that's, I think, some of the most important work that we can do is making the quiet space to tune out the noise and to listen, to feel, and then trust where we're being guided with that inner wisdom.
Absolutely. And just being with that place of the inner wisdom. Sometimes when you're even with that, I know some people who've reached out, they said, okay, I want to create that space, but it's so hard to find the time, or want to create that space, but then I start to hear all the noise in my head. And so whether you are at entry level or whether you are a senior executive or supervisor, that can still get kicked up. Totally. What do you speak to as a tip for people who are struggling with that question of where do I find the time, or where do I create space when that inner noise kicks up?
Yeah, totally. And it's create your rituals, find time. And what I'll say is that one of the things I learned very early on is that when I started making time for myself in the kind of my sacred morning rituals, what I would find is I was much more productive in the day than I was if I didn't do that sort of thing. And so I started to just track that. And so that's my first invitation I think I would extend to your listeners is try it. Make some space in the morning, get up a little earlier, and really create a ritual for yourself where you're listening to that inner wisdom, whether you're meditating, whether you're journaling, or all of the above, going on walks, whatever that looks like for you. And if you can do that in a way that you get into the habit of doing that, and then start to pay attention to what's it feel like when you don't do that. If you miss a day, just notice, were you as productive as you were on the day that you did do that? And my guess is you'll find, if you're like me, you'll find that you become much more productive if you are able to tune in and listen from a different perspective and make that space for yourself.
Beautiful. So as we make space for ourselves, we can shift what might appear like procrastination or lack of productivity into productivity and passion, really hearing that spaciousness that you can create when you take time to tune in. I know those who are listening, many of us can get really stressed out or get overwhelmed, and that can have some physiological symptoms, feeling like we feel it in our body. We can begin to pay attention when some of those things are stress-based. And what I hear many people say is, one of the things that stresses me out are peopling.
Yes.
And sometimes we underestimate how this time of like quarantining, right, and going within, now all of a sudden there's both the great, and then we also see the silent quitting beginning to happen. You see people having to try to find the right talent and just really struggling with, who are the people that are a part of my core for my vision? Will they get me? Will they listen to me? Am I good enough? All the things that get kicked up when you create space to listen to ourselves.
All those stories.
All the stories, all the stories. And sometimes those stories are in here, the inner critic, and sometimes they're the naysayers, right? And so we want to balance that, right? We want to balance that. How does toxicity get into our space and into our vision? So with that, if you can share with us something that you feel is important to know, that if you have this experience, you're not alone. For those who are tuning in, you're not alone if you've been wrestling with peopling. How can you relate to that when you're connecting with that? And also any tips you have based on your experience in business on navigating that based on our current landscape. These are tough questions, y'all. We're all sorting it through together.
We are. And I can completely relate. I mean, we did have all this space through a pandemic where we were in our little secluded homes and not having the people contact. And when we started coming out and started coming and being in connection with people, there was some learning of just like that, those memory, the memory learning, coming back into really being able to connect with people at a deeper level and a different level. I mean, I know a lot of, even especially like kids, ran into the impact of going back to school and not knowing how to interact with one another. And we did the same thing as entrepreneurs. So I think that while we can find it really, the seclusion to be a nice thing, I think we have to find that balance and not lose that skill set to really be able to connect with people on a different level. And it can get messy in the mix of all of that. And what I'd say is just give yourself grace, give yourself some love in that as you are stepping out and being with people more often. And I know for me, when I started hosting live events again, it felt so wonderful. But then I would need to go back and really have that my space again. So really learn to pay attention to your body. And if your body is like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of overwhelm because there's been so much external input coming in, give yourself the space and then step back out into it. And then also just choose your communities wisely. I mean, if you're in communities that are uplifting you, I think that, if you're going to communities where they don't feel like, you're being uplifted in that space, it may not be the right space, and maybe you're being called to be in a different community.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you're talking about, how do we build community?
Yes.
How do we build community? So I'm hearing a couple of gems. So, those who are tuning in, that we are here on purpose for a purpose. And I want to make sure that you have subscribed, you have connected, and you will get information in the show notes about how to connect with Kami, right? But some gems that I'm hearing is, one, looking at who is a part of your circle. Who is your core community, right? Is it the right fit? I'm hearing another gem of, what are ways that you are stepping up and then stepping back, right? Sometimes we are taught to push through, and all of a sudden the organs begin to break down, the mind begins to break down, we begin to question ourselves, and then we say, imposter syndrome, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough, versus I'm actually overwhelmed, which is an amazing gem.
So good.
Let me tune in and pull back. So I want to make sure that we catch those two. And I know you're going to be speaking to us in a moment about one of your delicious communities. So we'll be able to hear more about it in a moment. But I just want to make sure that for those who are tuning in, that you catch those two pieces, right? As we unlock the unstoppable love in you so that you can continue to fly as an everyday superhero. So I just want to shout from the rooftops and celebrate some of the things that you're sharing. And so I want to ask you, what are one of the misconceptions? We've touched on them before, but what are some of the misconceptions that people have about either being a woman supervisor, a woman executive, or a person who honors the feminine balance within you? What are some of the misconceptions about leadership that you feel like sometimes creates imposter syndrome unnecessarily? What would you say to that?
I think the one that's really been top of mind for me is that we have to work harder. Just keep working harder. And my invitation is to really look at, in fact, I've been playing a lot with the word time. Oh gosh, the word I've been playing with is time prosperity. So I was going time abundance. I was like, no, that's not the right word. It's time prosperity. And that means making space to be able to think about what are the things that you want to be known for? What are the topics, whether you are an executive, whether you are coming up in your company, whether you're an entrepreneur, all of these spaces have what do you want to be known for in your space. And you can only get there if you make space for yourself to do your own thinking, to do your own thought leadership work. And so that means kind of pulling back and not necessarily filling every hour of every day with something, because you can't step into those thought leadership messages if you don't have that time prosperity. And so my invitation to your listeners is to think about, where do you have some white space on your calendar that you can think, you can strategize, you can think bigger picture for your life, for your business, for your career. And if you have that kind of space set aside, you have an ability to be able to think of things that you might not think of otherwise, because otherwise you're just in the doing all the time. And so many people that I know just keep their calendars entirely full, and it doesn't serve us as feminine leaders. We can't be our best selves if every minute of every day is we're running off in another direction. And it's like we end one meeting and we're jumping into another, and it just happens from the very moment we get going in the morning till the time we go to bed at night. And so that slowing down to really honor the time prosperity that we do have, and move out of the shift out of time scarcity. Because when we're going from meeting to meeting to meeting, that we're always on a scarcity mode, and that breaks down our bodies.
Absolutely. And I love that. I want to make sure that I highlight that gem, because there's some gem droppers, literally pearls, diamonds, all kinds of gold dripping from Kami right now. This is why she's ultimately one of my favorite people. So I'm so glad that you are pointing this out, to really shift from time scarcity to time prosperity. Let's just sit with that, y'all. If you can just be with that, tune into, from your crown chakra to your root chakra, what it would look like if your every action, every decision, every meeting through the day were to be funneled through, is this something that's going to bring prosperity to me? It's focusing on, like, this is the goal, this is expansion. Is it something that's going to be scarce? And how do I create spaciousness because I'm using my time as if it's prosperous, right? Yes. How much of a shift that can be. And so whether you are tuning in and you move in feminine, masculine, or more than one, you can really relate to this experience of feeling like there's quote unquote never too much time, right, in the day, to there's actually more than enough time when we go deeper, right? Like, how powerful is that? For those who are tuning in, I want to make sure that you listen to the very end of this podcast, because we are about to completely throw the ball into the water, if you will, and create a big splash for a very special invitation that Kami has coming up, so that you can really get the opportunity to kind of go deeper into some of these conversations. Because it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to be about it, right? So right now we're talking about it, you're taking notes, you're tuning in, you're amazing, you showed up to this podcast. So off the bat, you're connected, you're here on purpose. and we want to do a special invitation. So being that we're talking about this time prosperity, say you've given yourself permission to shine. You've said, I want to show up more powerfully and I want to really manifest some shift in my life. But I keep feeling like this happens so much. I keep feeling like this one person that I'm working with is making me want to pull my hair out, et cetera, all the things. And it's just kicking up our stuff. Do you have any tips for improving communication with those that we are peopling with when the going gets tough? Just as a last gem dropper before we go.
I would say really pay attention, have the conversations, set expectations. I mean, I've actually just come through this recently and I had to let a team member go, and it's not an easy thing to do. And he's like, show up in love, really care for the person and say, this is what I need, be very specific. And I think the one thing that the word that came out for me in this last scenario that I went through was accountability. Make sure you're holding people accountable to some be very specific about what you're holding people accountable to. And so when you do it with love, when you do it with, okay, this is where this is what I need. And if it's not the right fit, I guess my biggest piece of advice is let that go. Let the person go. Because if you find yourself in those stories on a frequent basis of, oh, I'm not happy about this output, I'm not happy about what this person is doing, it gets harder, right? It just gets harder because you're just telling yourself that story over and over and over again, and it's not good for anyone, right? And so the biggest gift is to let people go if it's not the right fit, if it's not the right match, and then let them move to their bigger possibilities, and then look for the right person to really fill in yours. So I'm going right with the story that's really top of mind for me on that one.
Absolutely. And I appreciate when we can hear those personal experiences, right, of what it looks like to show up in love, but to also say, is this the right fit, right person?
Right.
And what I'm hearing you say is the difference between either quiet quitting or avoiding is facing, right?
So true.
Write that out, make the expectations clear, right? Make sure you have a clear job description, clear expectations, clear conversation, whatever that looks like in whatever the culture that either you've created or you're a part of. You might be a middle manager supervising others and others are supervising you, right? Wherever you land. But I'm really hearing you speak into holding true to, if you've set this intention, guiding to see how it's going, checking in on it. And if it's not the right fit, instead of riddling your mind and having that take up your time in your brain, looking at what is the best fit. And if you're really wrestling with that, hop on over to the 4 boosts of confidence. We have another podcast around boundary setting. If you're like, oh, this is really hard, right? Because we all wrestle with
it. Is hard.
It's hard stuff.
It is hard. And it's
like it's your baby. You want it to go well. And then, oh my goodness. And how much more powerful is it on the other side to say, and now I get to find right fit, right person.
And when you find the right fit, you can feel it energetically, you can feel it, and it becomes a flow. And it's just such a beautiful gift when you find the right fit. So that's where I'd go with that. Really pay attention to the energy you are feeling around a relationship, and it will tell you everything, right? That deep inner wisdom.
Absolutely, which goes back to carving out space for that.
Yes.
So speaking of, we are at our time, but I have to admit that if you are tuning in right now, whether you are sharing this with someone else, you are tuning in with a friend, like call them over, like you need to hear this, or you are someone who just says, oh my gosh, this speaks directly to me, right? I just want to formally thank Kami for bringing insight, bringing experience and expertise to the table, because we've heard several different gems. What does it look like for us to speak from time prosperity and move from such? How do we carve out time in our life so that we can really show up powerfully in a way that we're listening into this deep wisdom? How do we really create space when we're listening from that place of deep wisdom, when something feels like, oh, this is not quite the right fit? And instead of questioning ourselves, we trust ourselves and say, how do I either check this relationship and hold that accountable, or say something new needs to form here? What does that look like? And how do we hold ourselves in community? And so if you're someone who's looking to really specifically focus in on your professional growth and your business growth, or you are someone who just wants to grow professionally and you feel really passionate about this, tell us a little bit more about what opportunity we have to connect more deeply with you and your community, being that this is resonating right now. How do we connect with you, Kami?
Sure. The best place is my Extraordinary Women Connect community over on Facebook. So that's a great place to join us. We've got a room full of just extraordinary women doing amazing things in the world. I work with entrepreneur women, and so I help women grow their businesses and scale their businesses using their voice, taking their voice out into the world with bigger ways, and really creating an impact with their voice. So if that speaks to any of your listeners, reach out to me. You can apply for a coaching session with me at Coaching with Kami, and just jump out there and grab a spot with me, and we can have some conversation about how you really grow your business and elevate your voice for impact, for good in the world.
Absolutely. So really looking at going and connecting to Coaching with Kami, really hopping on over to the Facebook group. Could you repeat that? And it'll also going to be in the show notes, but repeat that for those who are on the go.
Sure. It's Extraordinary Women Connect.
Perfect. So going to Extraordinary Women Connect to be able to take that next step. And there's some amazing opportunities to really be able to unleash your voice and continue to shine. And if you are someone who is tuning in, you stayed here to the very end, which means that you are committed to self-love, self-care, and success strategies so that you can be unstoppable in the world as an everyday superhero. Kami, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on our show today. Thank you so much for sharing your personal and professional insights and being in conversation so that we can really have a holistic approach to help people to shine. For those tuning in, we wish you self-love, self-care, and success throughout the rest of your day. And remember, she remembered who she was and the game changed. See you soon. Thank you, Kami.
Thank you.